There is a particular kind of grief that doesn't have a great name yet. It's not the grief of losing something. It's the grief of knowing, in advance, that you will. It's the grief of looking at something you love and understanding, with complete clarity, that the math was never going to work out in your favor. Biologists know it. Veterinarians know it. Anyone who has ever driven to a shelter, pointed at a dog behind a kennel door and said, "That one," they know it too, even if they don't say it out loud on the drive home. You're signing a contract. The terms are non-negotiable. You're going to love this animal more than seems reasonable for a species that is not your own. And one day, probably sooner than you deserve, you're going to have to let it go. That is the deal. Almost everyone takes it anyway. This is about the science underneath the thing you already know in your gut, that dogs are not just pets. They are something weirder and older and more extraordinary than that. And by the end of it, you will love them more, which means it will also hurt more. When your dog looks at you, really looks at you, the soft, unblinking gaze you interpret as love, even though you've been told not to anthropomorphize, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same neurochemical that fires between a mother and her newborn. Your dog's brain releases it too, at the same moment. Looking at you activates the same hormonal loop in your dog that looking at them activates in you. This is not a metaphor. It was measured, in urine, by a team at Azabu University in Japan, and published in the journal Science in 2015. 30 pairs of dog and human were observed interacting, and the more a dog held mutual gaze with their owner, the higher both parties' oxytocin levels climbed. The longer the look, the bigger the rise. The researchers also ran the experiment with wolves raised by humans. Wolves socialized from birth. Wolves with every reason to be comfortable making eye contact. Nothing. The loop didn't activate in wolves. Whatever happened to the dog's brain during domestication, across tens of thousands of years of proximity to humans, created something that never existed in wolves. Dogs evolved the capacity to initiate a love hormone loop in us, and by doing so, they sealed a bond so neurologically deep that we now mourn them the way we mourn people. If you have ever wondered why losing a dog feels so catastrophically sad, why people are wrecked by it in ways they sometimes feel embarrassed to admit, this is part of the answer. The bond was chemically real, in both directions. The grief is proportional. Here is a fact about your morning routine you probably haven't thought about. Your dog already knows you're going to work before you've put your shoes on. They are tracking a constellation of microsignals: the sound of your alarm, the smell of the clothes you wear to the office versus the ones you wear on weekends, the sequence of your movements, and by the time you reach for your keys, they have already begun processing your absence. Dogs don't experience time the way we do. They don't have clocks. They don't have the concept of Tuesday. One leading theory is that they track the gradual fading of your scent from the environment. As it grows weaker, you grow closer to returning. They are using smell as a clock, and it is apparently accurate enough to move them to the door minutes before you arrive. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that dogs display measurably different brain activity depending on how long they've been separated from their owner. 30 minutes produces one kind of response. 2 hours produces another. They are not simply waiting. They are registering duration. And for some dogs, that missing tips into something clinical. Separation anxiety is not trivial. Dogs with the condition can spend hours in genuine panic, scratching at door frames, howling, losing bladder control. Research consistently finds the peak of their distress falls in the first 30 minutes after departure. The suffering isn't about boredom. It is about you. About the absence of you, specifically, in a brain that was built to be near you. About 20 minutes after your dog falls asleep, their breathing becomes shallow and irregular. Their paws twitch. Their eyes move rapidly behind closed lids. They have entered REM sleep, the same stage that produces dreams in humans, and their brain is doing something that mirrors, with remarkable precision, what a human brain does in the same state. A foundational MIT study in 2001 showed that rats, after running through mazes during the day, replayed those same patterns of neural activity during REM sleep. They were dreaming about the maze. Since dogs have far more complex brains than rats, and since their sleep cycles produce the same electrical signatures that accompany dreaming in humans, the inference is not a stretch. Dogs dream. What they dream about, neuroscientist Stanley Coren has argued, appears to be breed-specific. Pointers point at dream birds. Retrievers retrieve things that aren't there. The science suggests they are replaying their actual days. And because you're a central feature of your dog's day, every day, you're almost certainly in there. Running alongside them in some dream field, throwing some dream ball, making some face they've memorized completely. They sleep, and they dream of you, and they wake up, and they are still happy you exist. A border collie named Chaser made headlines in the neuroscience world in 2011 by learning the names of 1,022 individual objects: stuffed animals, balls, frisbees, plastic toys, all of which she could correctly identify and retrieve by name. Her handlers had to write the names on the toys because they couldn't keep track. Chaser could. She also understood that names were nouns rather than commands, and she could learn the name of a new object purely by inference, figuring out what the unfamiliar thing must be called by eliminating everything she already knew. That particular cognitive skill had previously been considered uniquely human. It emerges in children at around 2 years old. Research from Hungary has since shown that dogs process meaningful words in the left hemisphere of their brain and process intonation, how something is said, in the right hemisphere, mirroring the way human brains handle language. They are listening to both what you say and how you say it, through separate neural channels simultaneously. When you come home after a bad day and tell your dog you're fine in a flat voice, the evidence suggests they know you're not telling the full truth. In 2022, a team published a study in Scientific Reports confirming what dog owners have long suspected. Dogs grieve. The researchers surveyed 426 Italian dog owners who had lost one of 2 companion dogs while the other was still alive. 86% reported negative behavioral changes in the surviving dog: less eating, less playing, more sleep, more fear, more clinging to their human for comfort. The depth of the change correlated with the quality of the bond between the 2 animals, not with how long they had lived together. The relationship mattered more than the duration. In this way, canine grief resembles human grief more than most researchers were prepared to formally admit. They mourn. They search rooms for people who no longer fill them. They don't have a full concept of death. Their cognition in this area is thought to resemble a human child between 2 and 3 years old. But the loss lands anyway. The world becomes differently shaped, and they carry that for a while before they let themselves come back. While you've been worrying about your dog's health, your dog has been working on yours. Dog owners have lower resting blood pressure than non-owners, better lipid profiles, and faster recovery from stress. A Swedish study published in Circulation, following over 3 million people for up to 12 years, found that single people who owned dogs showed a 33% reduction in risk of death from any cause and a 36% reduction in cardiovascular mortality. Among people who had already survived a heart attack, dog ownership was associated with a 65% lower risk of death in the following year. Your dog, without asking, has been quietly extending your life. And now, the part that is genuinely hard to sit with. Researchers have mapped dog aging in molecular detail using epigenetic clocks, tools that measure how genes are switched on and off over time. When they compared the epigenetic aging patterns of Labrador retrievers against those of 320 humans, a 12-year-old Labrador mapped to a 70-year-old person. The biological aging is real, compressed, and running at roughly 5 times the human pace across middle life. Larger dogs age even faster. Great Danes average 8 to 10 years. Bernese Mountain Dogs often 6 to 8. The bigger the dog, the more accelerated the internal clock, the higher the cancer risk, the sooner the organs fail. Every year you share with your dog, they are aging roughly 5 years on the inside. You're watching someone you love move through decades while you move through one. The compression is the cruelest part. So here is what you're actually dealing with, every day, when your dog looks at you. You're looking at an animal whose ancestors chose, tens of thousands of years ago, to stop being afraid of you, and whose entire evolutionary trajectory from that moment bent toward you, whose brain was so thoroughly reshaped by domestication that it developed hormonal systems designed to bond with you, read your face, track your absence, register your grief. That dreams about its days, and its days are largely you. That can learn your words and parse your tone. That is measurably lowering your blood pressure right now. And you are looking at an animal that will be here for 10 or 12 or 14 years, if you are lucky, aging at 5 times your speed, compressing a full life into the time it takes you to move through a small fraction of yours. That is the deal. It is heartbreaking, and it is extraordinary, and it is the best deal most people will ever make. The math doesn't work out. The time is never enough. The grief, when it comes, is real, and it is earned. Evidence that the whole thing was real. That you were loved, in whatever way love exists for a species that cannot name it, but can demonstrate it daily with a patience and a consistency that most humans can only aspire to. That's dogs. Love them while you have them.